Good evening. Tonight, I wanted to talk about food processing in the United States. If you have watched now the first two videos I made, then you know that I have shown products by their names, where you can get them, and what they cost. And there's a reason for this. My channel is based here in the United States, so the largest viewer group is going to be from the United States. And those folks who are watching this, either because that was presented to them by YouTube, the video, and they choose to watch it, they may not be as familiar with European foods, and especially anything from the 1830s, from that time. So I have to translate this over to our given, today's environment of food processing. Now, there's something I want to share about my background, which most viewers are probably not aware of. Is my primary business is Inova High Tech, and we develop and manufacture electronic circuits primarily for the industrial automation market and for the military. And the bigger segment really always has been industrial automation. And here in Kansas City, I started this, I brought it over from Germany, and I started this here around 1995. And from that time, we have basically two customers left. One is fully working still with us. The other one has gone a different way, but for other reasons than being dissatisfied with our work, what we do. But both of these companies I'm working with, or I dominantly work with, primarily work with, is involved and has been involved for decades in the cold storage business here in the United States. And the other company I used to work with, we're still good friends, is a Swiss company who has their headquarters here in Kansas City. They manufacture food packaging equipment. And because of my involvement with both companies, I got to visit many, many food places here in the Midwest. We're in the heartland, which is the cattle center, or the cattle capital area, basically, of the United States. And, we service everything up to Wisconsin down to Texas. In this, with the cold storage business, it's nationwide, including the Caribbeans and Hawaii and Alaska, with the food processing up there for fish and seafood. And so the facilities I have seen, I can describe to you, so I'm pretty much, up to date of what we have, what is there in terms of quality, how this is structured, how this goes through the food distribution, where you can buy what at what prices, who got what. And of course, we got connections. I can have crab legs, king crab legs from Alaska here tomorrow, or I can get, Maine lobster here by tomorrow too, because of the customers we have and are dealing with. And we have our connections here, just as an example. To explain this probably for people outside the United States on how this works, we have to go back to a time around 1940. And I want to give you an example. One of our customers, my friend's customers, with his cold storage business, is up in York, Nebraska, which is a small town, probably 50 miles west of Lincoln, Nebraska, which is one of the bigger cities. And they used to manufacture, that is beef cattle country up there. And they're basically processing beef there, high-grade beef. And that facility was built by the current owner, son, back in the 1940s, or the grandfather actually built this. And it was a traditional cold storage building, which was still built by the old methods. That meant you had a concrete or brick building, and you put about 10 inches, which is about 25 centimeters of cork on the inside for insulation. And then you had the refrigeration system drawing it down to the temperatures you needed. In this case, that particular freezer where my friend sold some equipment to, which were doors, cold storage doors, they're very particular. They're manufactured here in Kansas City, and he's one of the leading manufacturers in these doors and the technology of these doors. Had to be replaced, and we took out a door which my friend's father installed there around 1952. Just so you get an idea on how long this goes back. In the 1950s, the President Eisenhower, when he came in, he looked at the overall situation and he came up with the entire strategy of the Autobahn here, the interstate system. And they were realizing that once all the American soldiers came back and the post-war economy took off here in the United States, that they had to change the strategy of their food distribution system here. That the cities were changing, the GIs basically who grew up in the inner city, so to speak, whether it was on the East Coast here in Kansas City or out west, started to move into the suburbs. They wanted the 3-bedroom house with the picket fence and the 1 or 2 car garage and that sort of stuff. And that started to spread the country out. Once you start to do that, is that you have to change your food distribution system. Before this, in most large cities, like when I lived in New York or Brooklyn, there were local butcher shops, delis on every street corner, and you can get all sorts of stuff there with no problems within walking distance. Here in Kansas City, for instance, the closest Aldi I have from where I live is 8 miles, and they don't have the whole assortment, so the other Aldi is 12 miles from here, just to get there. The same with the supermarket is about 6 miles from here. If I wanted to go to Whole Foods Market, which has the better assortment of many things, I would have to drive 25 miles one direction to get there and 25 miles coming back. This is how far spread out this is. So at this point, the United States, the government here started to think about on how they would have to change this. The other thing was this was the time of the baby boom here, where the soldiers then, the GIs who came back from World War II started to have families, 2 children, 3 children, and there was a growing population there, and that was one of the reasons why Eisenhower slammed in the brakes with immigration during that period of time because the country was not set up for this. So, and in this time also came the invention of styrofoam, which was actually a German invention, but then the Americans made their own version of it, and they called it styrofoam. And that became then the insulation material of choice because it has a higher R value. It can repel heat better than sunlight than any other material. And they did this with a cladding of metal on each side. And they came with these pre-manufactured panels up where you have a styrofoam core and then you have laminated metal on each side. They're usually 4 inches, 6 inches, 8 inches, all the way up to 20 inches thick, depending on what you need. And that material, that advancement, gave America the possibility. They basically pioneered this whole system to set up large food distribution centers. And I'm going to show you now a picture of a Walmart distribution center. This is not a store. Walmart has, at least in every state, one of these distribution centers. Some states with large populations have 2 to 3 of them. A total, I think they have 75 of them here in the 48 states, and I think there's one of them in Hawaii, but I'm not sure. But just here in the 48 states, in the lower 48, what we call it, They have 72 of these distribution centers. And they're basically cold storage buildings. These are gigantic freezers and coolers, like a huge refrigerator with an even bigger freezer compartment. And they're averaging, on average, 1,000,000 square foot, 1,200,000 square foot. And that is well over 100,000 square meters to 150,000 square meters. Just so you have an idea. And from these places, the way this works basically is all the frozen and products which have to be stored in a cold around 34, 36 degrees Fahrenheit. The freezer is usually minus 20 to minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit. That is probably minus 20 to minus 25 degrees Celsius for the freezer, and around 2 degrees or so, 4 degrees Celsius for the coolers. The food manufacturers, which also have these type of buildings, they operate, say, like we use Tyson as an example. Tyson in Omaha is a slaughterhouse where they receive up to, I think, 1,000 or 5,000 pigs in an 8-hour shift. And they slaughter the pigs there, and then the pigs get processed, cut up. And the only thing they're processing then further at this facility is they're making the bacon. And the manufactured or the packaged bacon is then sent to these food distribution centers, in a greater area, say like in a 5-state area what they're serving. And then those are going to be stored, say like at these Walmart distribution centers. And when one Walmart store runs out, they get resupplied. This is basically of what they set up. The other thing is, what you need to know is that the United States had about 150 million people living here as inhabitants by 1955, and today we have 330 million. Part of it is the population growth through birth, and then immigration over the last 40, 50, 60 years, which varied in different heights, and the illegal immigrants we're trying to get rid of now, and so far and so on. All of this had put a huge demand on food supply into the United States. The next thing then, what happened was the reorganization of farms here in the United States. In the 1960s, in the late 1960s, I think it was already under Nixon. Nixon's food and agricultural commissioner that he had there, that person, the secretary for food and agriculture, went around the country, and he told the farmers basically to go big or to go out or get out. And so the traditional family farm, which had probably 100 acres, 150 acres, maybe 80 acres on the small side, they started to sell out to younger farmers who wanted to grow this. So you would combine 10 family farms into one farm. So the average farm now has about 1,000 acres or more. That's the result. That's happened then in the early 70s to change the food production from the field on, basically. The same thing is with the dairy production changed from, small dairy farms where you have 10, 20, 30 cows. They went now to cows which have farms which have probably 500 to 1,000 or even more cows. The same with the beef production. With the beef production, it is still somewhat smaller, especially with the high-grade beef, which they're producing here in Kansas and in Nebraska and in Iowa. The hog farms, the pigs, basically the same story. Chicken, the same. Poultry, turkey, all of the stuff pretty much the same. The Northeast kind of didn't get as big because the environment there is different. So these small farms are slightly smaller. But the dairy farms, and that is primarily Wisconsin and Minnesota, went to these supersized farms, basically. Supersized milk production. And as I have mentioned, this butter, our favorite topic here in the beginning, is an essential in cooking, for basting and to make sauces and all sorts of stuff. So the quality of the butter is really important. During the same time, when the food production was changed here from a local decentralized system to a centralized system, the food safety standards increased. The entire requirements, for instance, how milk is processed today is very different than what it was 50 years ago or 70 years ago. Here in the United States, basically every milk is pasteurized and homogenized. So we can get only H milk, what we consider in Germany H milk, here in a store. You will not get fresh milk. I have not shown you the American butter, which we normally get here. This butter I have shown you is the high end in our food distribution system without going through a dairy farm who still makes their own butter, so you can actually get fresh butter, which is only pasteurized and will last a few days with a high butter fat content. All of this stuff is homogenized and the fat has been taken out to spread it out as much as they can. Our regular butter you can leave outside the refrigerator and you can have that on the kitchen counter, just with a little cover over it, and it will stay okay for 4-6 weeks. You don't even have to put it in the refrigerator. This is what they consider butter here in the United States. Now, this is why I've been pushing this, subject so much, because I understand where America is, what Americans are buying, and what we actually need for cooking purposes. Now, I understand also a lot of chefs don't like to show the ingredients or condiments, whatever they're putting in there, using of what products they're actually, utilizing in their recipes when they're cooking something on YouTube, for instance. They just say butter. If you tell someone here in the United States butter, you have not seen American butter. That's all I can tell you. You have not seen it. You tell someone you need a cup of milk. You have not seen American milk. You have not seen. You have to start realizing this is. Try the next time, if you're a professional chef trying to cook something, with H milk, if you need milk, and then tell me how that tastes when you're going to cook this with H milk. And this is why I'm pointing this out, and this is why I'm showing this, so the viewer in our videos here can understand of what they probably should buy if they can. Now, I use Walmart because Walmart is basically nationwide, and they are predominantly in rural areas where people, don't have access to a wide variety of supermarkets which may carry a higher quality. So for many people here in America, Walmart is the closest supermarket for food and other items than what they have. And I have friends down in South Kansas who are, cattle ranchers, and they don't have any milk. They buy their milk, because they're beef cows. They buy their milk at Walmart. That's usually where everyone winds up going, is at Walmart. There is no milk cows around. If you want fresh milk here in Kansas, you have to get a cow or two in your garage. You will have to park your car outside in the driveway, and you have to get a cow in your garage or out in the backyard somewhere, just so that you get an idea. So this is why I'm showing the products which I would recommend for these recipes, which will work and will give you an authentic taste of what it should taste like. I guarantee you that food would most chefs present on YouTube, not knowing food distribution. they have no clue what their potential viewers may put in there when they say milk or butter. That starts with the mustard. The traditional American mustard is the yellow mustard. And then, if you're lucky, it's Grey Poupon. When they say mustard, is it now Grey Poupon, or is it yellow mustard? What mustard is it? Mustard is not mustard. In the food you're presenting, you're trying to give to the customer, to the viewer, is not going to taste the same. It won't. So you cook one thing, tastes great. They cook this with their ingredients. They ain't going to have a great experience. Some will do better. Some will do, less, especially when someone is going to trying to do something new. So that's why that is helpful here for the viewers in the United States, to actually show them the ingredients and let them know where they can actually get them. And I will do this. We will put that together when we cook something, and then I will explain the differences of why they should use it, rather than just saying you need to use vinegar, for instance. That's another topic, And of course, we all have our favorite flavors and that sort of stuff. Some chefs here in the United States, they have actually realized this, and they have actually, or they're offering their own oils and their own vinegars under their chef name, the name branding. So you can go to their website and buy this stuff. That is one of them. Chef Jean-Pierre down in Miami is one of them. He got 2.5 million viewers, I think, or subscribers. And one of the reasons why that is because he explains this to people what they need to get. And if you know Chef Jean-Pierre, JP, then you know that he tells you butter, and more butter for one, and onion. Onion. I love the way he says this, onion. This is not a criticism, but let me give you another example here. In this food distribution I have now described is the food distribution for restaurants works very differently. Those companies are also our customers, my friends' customers. And the electronics, by the way, I built for that company is the electronics to operate these extremely large doors they put on the freezers and coolers, where they can drive in with these big forklifts. These are big doors. 5 by 5 meter or 3 by 3 meters is probably the average size on these doors, just so you get an idea. And they probably weigh close to 500 kilograms, just the door leaf on these. So we built the electronics for those to operate the motors to drive these doors. And that is extremely rugged in the that is a pretty demanding application because of the usage every day. Thousands of door openings to have these drivers go in and out of these buildings, these freezers and coolers, and these doors have to close fast to keep the cold air and the temperature stable inside the freezer. And there's a lot of science involved in this to get this correct. Anyway, the food distribution for the restaurants is slightly different. They usually, a food distributor here, which exclusively sells to restaurants, they buy their food from smaller local farms in our area, and then they bring them down to their facility. And again, they have a large freezer and a large cooler where they can drive in with the forklifts because all of the stuff is palletized. And then from there, they have usually small delivery vans, and they bring this out to the restaurants. And that is usually your lettuce, tomatoes, produce, meat, seafood, all of this stuff. And they can get it either frozen or fresh, depending on the food distributor. And so they buy this, and of course, a restaurant buys usually larger quantities, and they get a fresher, shorter distance moved product into the restaurant. So the restaurant always has an easier time to obtain fresh or fresher produce or any food item than the average customer who has to go, or the regular person who has to go to a supermarket here. We have specialty, food processors here in Kansas City. They're usually specialized in meat products, from beef jerky to special sausages for your barbecue grill and that sort of stuff for cookouts, and for the pre-games they do the tailgating out here and that sort of stuff. We have that too, and some of them they usually don't slaughter anymore. They buy their food, and otherwise than that, you would have to order it online. Say, like, I give you an example. There is a German butcher, Stiegelmeier, up in Illinois, and they make Weisswurst and all the different sort of German sausages and Leberkäse and Sauerbraten and all of this stuff. It's all frozen. You can order it online. If you get your order in by Monday, they ship by Wednesday or Thursday in that week, and it goes out as fresh as it gets. But they have been starting using a lot more water in there too. So this is sort of what our situation looks like it here. Some of these more fancy restaurants we have, these higher end restaurants, they have now 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 locations in larger cities. And they have their own centralized food purchasing, where they go to farms, smaller farms, artisan kind of operations, to buy their beef, to buy their lettuce, tomatoes, or whatever. Another note on this is, for instance, if we go with produce, we used to produce most of the produce here in the United States, but this has shifted now with NAFTA, where most of the stuff, say like tomatoes, even when they're in season, at the supermarket, come from Mexico or Canada. And sometimes the stores sell, tomatoes from a few local farmers we have. That varies. Otherwise, if you have a friend or, one of your neighbors, they grow tomatoes, it's always better to get the tomatoes from those sources here, because that stuff what comes out of Canada and Mexico has virtually no taste. So this is all the stuff when you have cooking channels, and the, philosophy behind it is we're trying to, I guess, sell an experience here. Recipes have to be easy and fast, and it is good when you don't have to order a lot of stuff or make unnecessary trips to the store. A recipe which looks and tastes great in a restaurant is not easily duplicated here in the United States because of the different levels of quality available to the average customer, without saying that it is bad quality what we're getting. It is just a mass-produced quality. And this was the reason why I posted this video from Louis Define on my channel here. And that was the story with the food factory. If you ever have a chance to watch that movie, I would suggest you can. It was translated or dubbed into German and English, so you should be able to obtain a copy. I think you can rent it here on YouTube too for an hour and a half. And it is somewhat funny, but this is basically where our food processing got to. I do not know if Europe has gotten to the same level yet of the sophistication in terms of centralized food processing and food manufacturing as the United States has. In France, I would think it is probably more localized, and most French people are going to go to their local weekly market Wednesdays and Saturdays, I believe they usually are, and they buy their dairy products and meat products and probably seafood there rather than in a supermarket, unless you're on a shoestring budget. This was basically all of the thoughts I had on this. The cooking videos will come. This is where we're covering the basics here. And that was really my objective, to explain this. Hopefully for the US viewers, it may have given you a better idea why I'm structuring the videos I do. If you're in a foreign country or if you're a chef, you may have gotten new information to it. That I don't know. I hope so. And then we hope we're going to have a lot of fun cooking food, because that's what it is. We like to eat and we like to cook. So with that, you have a great evening, and we will see you soon.